a little bit altered the title on the program in order to focus on one point instead of presenting the whole set of what could be said about the Arabic language. So I will focus on Naskhi letter shapes. The presentation will be in The presentation will be in 6 parts. I will introduce quickly my own analytic approach to writings. Then I will go to Ibn Muqla's epistle, who coded the writing on the basis of the Naskhi style, and then comment on the system of letter shapes in Arabic and in relation with world form visual identification, and then I will comment on letters. On the whole, I have developed an approach of the emergence of a given script. The fact is, the process is traceable in Arabic through medieval sources, and life is much simpler when you work on a language like Arabic than when you work on English or French. In English, you said one Professor Kulmas said 1,800 phoneme-grapheme relations. It's much simpler in a language like Arabic. So this allowed a theoretical approach which is clearer and easier to draw. The processes which give birth to writing systems are collective, of course, and they are of metalinguistic nature. To be very quick, there are 2 interwoven processes, analytic operations, the object of which is the oral language. And the oral language at phonetic, morphological, morphotactic levels. The operations are segmentation, a type of segmentation, which I will not describe, but because it would take too much time. Then identifying units. Units in Arabic would be letters and word forms. And then there is what I have called the inventory principle, because if you have a chain of sounds and then you have to identify whatever you call them, letters, segment letters, graphemes, you have an inventory and you need criteria for that inventory. And then the second part is what I will talk about, is syntactic operations, which project, synthetic operations, which project the result of the analysis on writing supports, whether paper or stone or parchment or whatever. And this builds conventions, semiographic conventions of a given language or script, and we would use the criterion of readability today. The 2 sides of the metalinguistic process I have already presented. And then in this paper, I will present one aspect, the shape of letters. That is how the language, after the inventory of the alphabet has been done, after segmentation has been made on technical and precise criteria, then this is done. And now how do you draw letters? So this is, to say things in a few words, this is what this presentation will be about. I will say 2 very short words because this has been very well presented just before, and then just to recall that another type of letter shapes from South Arabian scripts was used, appeared in the early first millennium before Christ. That's Christian Robin's works. And the writing we know was borrowed from Syriac scripts or Aramaic altogether. But this entailed a good deal of adaptation, because you go from 22 graphemes to 28 to 29, depending on criteria. There have been historically, I said things are traceable in Arabic. Things are traceable because we have historical sources telling us the story of how the system emerged. Not all of it, but a lot of it. In the 2nd century, the 8th century, Al-Khalil devised secondary diacritics. Secondary diacritics are vowels, or the symbol for the doubling of letters, shadda, etc. These conventions were necessary to the Quranic text, to code the Quranic text. In the 4th century, and this is what this presentation will be about, the Naskhi style of letters was organized systematically. Maybe we will need to put quotes to systematically, by the vizier and great calligrapher Ibn Muqla, who died around 940. And the legend has it that his hand was cut off for political reason, and then that he kept on doing his magnificent writings. He was an artist, either with his left hand or what was left of his first hand. The first 8 pages of Ibn Muqla's epistle are reproduced in facsimile with a commentary in Hassan Mas'oudi, La calligraphie arabe vivante. Letter shapes are related to the word form convention. Word form's identification in Semitic writing. Word form, there should be no S and a dash between word and form. Word form identification in Semitic writings were used. They used to either put dots or small vertical strokes. Also, we all know there are end of word shapes of 5 letters in ancient Hebraic writing: Nun Sufit, Mem Sufit, etc. The end of letter shapes were made close to systematic in Arabic. Close to will have to be, of course, commented on. The word form in Arabic is a really complex unit. We devised a database of stems in relation to what's right and left of the stem of the word, the core of the word. I just refer to it, but I want now to go to the actual shape of letters, because if I start speaking about the word form, it will take too much time. There are publications, and the references are in the abstract. Ibn Muqla coded the Naskhi shapes of letters with the idea of a virtual circle. It's a geometric idea. This was in the 4th century. In the 3rd century, 4th century of Islam, that's the 9th or 10th century, many learners or scientists would use drawings to refer to conceptual ideas. This is one of the 2 ways of doing mathematics, geometry with drawings, then you can see, and algebra as we have learned in school. The drawings here, the lower part of the drawing here, you start with the letter Alif, which is in Arabic like this. This would be the vertical diameter of the circle, and then the Ba here would be the horizontal diameter. That's his, oops, I'm sorry. That's his, that's the main idea of Ibn Muqla. Then he distinguished, and this drawings is after Masoudi. He distinguished 5 strokes. You have a small vertical stroke here. You have a banded inclined stroke here. We don't have exactly the same vocabulary as what was presented this morning, but the idea is not very far from being the same. Then you have stroke 3, curved stroke, and then stroke 4 is a line, and stroke 5 is thrown down stroke. It's just describing the movement. The focus on the Naskhi style could be discussed. We could take other types of writings, Kufi writing, this could be discussed. But Ibn Muqla has done a very systematic has devised a systematic way of presenting the shapes of letters when it comes to strokes. So we'll follow him, and then the results of what I will present could be a basis for discussing other styles, the Maghribi styles, for instance, which had been analyzed by Lakhdar Ghazal, who devised a system to make it more readable. So this is further studies. The cursive line, in the same way as in Syriac, you have a cursive, the writing is along a cursive line. But this means, in Arabic at least, which is different from Syriac, in fact, it means that the number of drawings is limited. Because when you go along a line and you want to keep it, then the number of drawings is limited. It cannot exceed a few figures. So we have 2 overall adaptations. The cursive lines, 2 overall adaptations. First is here, is dots. Dots of the same width as the basic cursive line. I referred to vowels. These are written with the sharp part of the pen. This is with the wide part of the pen, dots. Which will, you put a dot under the small stroke and you have a B. You put 2 dots and you have a T. You put 1 above. You put 1 dot above and you have a noon, N, etc. And 3 dots, you have a Tha. So these primary diacritics are part of the character. And then the other device is breaking the cursive line, dua letters. This is how printers called that once upon a time, before everything was in informatics. So you have dal, waw, alif, ra, plus dai and zai, and dal and zai, which feature an additional primary dot. So breaks in the cursive line show word form boundaries, as I have just mentioned. So this entails a system with initial or mid-word shape versus end of the word shape. This is not 100% operational because of the letters who break the cursive line. But it works for an important part of the alphabet. Now, I said there were a small number of shapes. You have the stroke and the rounded form. And that's almost all. The stroke was identified by Ibn Muqla, and the rounded form was not identified, so I presented it myself. The first group of letters will use the stroke: leaning stroke, curved stroke, thrown down stroke, and a combination of two or more. So I just recall what we had. So this is the model. It covers 23 letters out of 28. So that's 28. Well, the 29th I put aside. You have, let us look, single stroke letters, two strokes letters, three strokes letters, and you present them in initial and middle word form, and letters with cursive line breaking. I will go to final forms in one of the next figures. The stroke, a single stroke here, would be, look, you have a small stroke, b, t, th, nun, y. Two dots would be y, three dots underneath would be y, three dots above would be th, then one would be nun, then two dots above would be t, and then ba. If you make a triple curved stroke, then you get the seen, and then you get the sheen here, seen, sheen. And then you have the same stroke, you make longer, and you get the lam. So you have a very important part of the alphabet here. Where are we? Then, with two stroke letters, you have the ayn, that's a curved stroke, inverted. The curved stroke, the same as in dal here, with jim, ha, and kha. And when you go here, when you go here, with the dal, you have a letter that is not attached to what follows, so it breaks the cursive line. It's the same as nun or ba, but it breaks the cursive line. And the zal does the same thing, but with a dot. Then the rounded form model, 5 letters. I have to go fast because otherwise we could spend a lot of time on every single letter. So the rounded form would be the w breaking the waw, w, which breaks the line. The fa and the qaf do not break the line, but the fa is with one dot above and two dots above. In Maghrebi writing, there's a difference, but well. Then you have the mim, which does the same, but the drawing is inverted. And then you have the ha, where you have an inclined stroke and a round form inside it. When the ha goes to mid-word shape, it changes forms, but I will not develop how it does, but this could be done. I thought I could present this as a film, but then I didn't have time to do it. But you can really do a film of that. It's with a calligrapher. One of my students has a very good hand, and so, well, I will do that, but of course later. Then, end of word shapes. No breaking the cursive line letters in this in here. So the cursive line shapes is the ba model here. This is, if you remember the circle, it's the same length as the aleph, but horizontally. You have it with the fa, with the ba, ta, tha. Then you have another model, which is the noon. it goes beyond the line, below the line. The line is here. And the cursive line would be here. So the noon would go, when it is attached to what it comes before, it goes underneath the line, and of course it's less wide than the ba. And the scene does the same. The scene is 1, 2, 3 strokes. The third stroke goes into a noon shape here. So we here. And then you have the ya. And then you have the kaf. Another way of writing is going underneath the line, the same as the kuf sufit or the nun sufit, but with a rounded form. The mim does the same as the mem sufit, but of course the shape is different. And this is the whole figure of end of word shapes. And then the dua group of letters remain the same, so they don't have to be discussed here because the shape doesn't change when it is at the end of a word. The semiographic principle, which I have tried to illustrate here, is related to a theoretical approach. Writing system can be considered as a cognitive analysis of the oral language. The way in which it is projected on paper by calligraphers, I have tried to illustrate. You have the art of writing on one side, readability on the other, and of course the elaboration owes a lot to Ibn Mukhlas. And just the last line is, in the Arabic writing, the gâafematik system comes first, and the art or mystical views come second. In the same way as in arabesque drawings. Mathematics first, and then if you want to go mystical, do it, but it's none of everybody's business. This is the same as in arabesque drawings. And thank you for your attention. And just a small, this is Salam, Peace, by Hassan Masoudi. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think from this day on I will look at Arabic writing quite differently than before. I open the floor for your questions and remarks.
Could you please elaborate a bit more on what you said that, can you return 2 slides? Yes, you said that the writing system can be considered as a collective cognitive analysis of the oral language. So you mean oral language comes first and it's analyzed cognitively by the collectivity, and this results into a writing system. Could you explain?
Historically, there is, for one thing, there's a borrowing. They borrow a writing from a previous writing. And then they think then they have the problem of how many letters they are in the language. So a group of people, and in the Arabic tradition, they tend to identify one person. For instance, Al-Khalil Ibn Ahmad al-Farahidi. But we don't know. But they want to, they have a storytelling by which it goes to the honor of having discovered this or that goes to this person or that other person. Clearly, a group of people, kuttab, scribes, worked on elaborating the system of writing. knowing that there had been scribes in the Middle East for at least 2,000 years before Arabic writing was codified as we know it. So they really had traditions and ways of using it. Many of the scribes also would use various writings. They could use Aramaic, Arabic. Adi bin Zayd, the poet Adi bin Zayd, who is a contemporary, who lived at the same time as the Prophet of Islam, was the son of a generation of scribes, and his father and great and grandfather, according to historical sources, used many writings. So these professionals devised ways of writing, and they needed conventions. So collectively, one way or another, they agreed on conventions. This is what I mean by collective and metalinguistic at the same time.
Thank you very much for this further elaboration. Looking at my watch, I would suggest that we have a coffee break now and reassemble here punctually at 3:45 for the rest of the afternoon with 4 more presentations. Thank you very much and enjoy your coffee break.